There is a place within you that has never been wounded, never been broken, never been afraid. It is the part of you that remembers the truth before the world tried to make you forget. It is not your name. It is not your story. It is not your past or your pain. It is the light, the eternal light that existed before your first breath and will remain long after your final one. And today, you are being called back to it. You have wandered far, haven't you? Into stories that were not yours, into ideas that told you you were not enough, into identities you wore like masks that eventually became too heavy to carry. You forgot the radiance you were born with. You believed that your value was something to be proven, your worth something to be earned. And so you searched in approval, in achievements, in relationships, in the endless noise of becoming. But the more you reached outward, the more disconnected you felt. The more you tried to shine by the world's dim flashlight, the more you lost sight of the blazing sun that lives inside your soul. But you are not lost. You are simply remembering. And all remembering is a form of returning. You do not need to build a new self. You only need to remove what is not you. You do not need to strive toward the light. You are the light. You do not need to fix yourself. You need to unlearn the idea that you are broken. Because nothing real can be threatened. And what is real in you has never dimmed. The soul is never in pieces. Only the mind thinks in fragments. The spirit sees only wholeness. The ego sees only lack. But you, the true you, are not the ego. You are not your fears. You are not the voice in your head that says you are too late, too flawed, too much, or not enough. That voice is a visitor. You are the awareness that watches it come and go. You are the sky, not the passing clouds. You see, the moment you begin to identify with your eternal nature, instead of your temporary conditions, a shift happens. Not a loud shift, not a dramatic lightning bolt, but a soft, deep remembering, like a whisper that says, there you are. You've always been here. The peace you seek is not something you earn through striving. It's something you allow through surrender. And the moment you stop chasing, you realize you were never running toward the truth, you were running from it. Stillness is not something you find. It is what remains when you stop running, when you stop judging, when you stop grasping for the next moment like this one is not enough. Stillness reveals the light. The light reveals the truth. And the truth sets you free not by changing anything, but by showing you what was always already free. You do not need to earn your way to the sacred. The sacred lives in you. You do not need to beg life to love you. Life has never stopped. Love is the atmosphere your soul breathes. Grace is not reserved for saints and sages. Grace is what carries you every day, even when you forget it exists, especially then. Come home to the breath. Come home to now, not the now you rush through, the now you've never fully entered. Right here, in this moment, is everything you've been seeking. The present is not just a place on the clock. It is the door to the divine. It is the only place the soul can meet you. Look at your hands. Feel your heartbeat. You are alive. You are a miracle. Not because of what you do, but because of what you are. And what you are is love, aware of itself. Have you noticed? The world teaches you to chase something more success, more attention, more improvement. But the soul whispers something different. Be still and know. Not do more and achieve, but be still and know that I am. The I am is the light. The I am is the truth. The I am is the God within you, not a deity in the clouds, but the presence that has never left you, even when you walked away from yourself. When you return to this presence, healing begins not because something outside touches you, but because you remember that what you are can never truly be harmed. The past may have shaped your form, but it has not touched your essence. The pain may have passed through your body, but it did not stain your spirit. You carry scars, yes, but those are symbols of the strength you had to heal. They are not your identity. They are reminders that even darkness must bow before the light. Let go of the identity that says, I am wounded. You are not your wound. You are the one who witnessed the wound and chose to rise. Let go of the belief that says, I am unworthy. You are not unworthy. You are the very definition of worth for the divine, chose to become you. You are not a mistake trying to be corrected. You are a miracle waiting to be remembered. And if the world tells you to fix yourself, smile inwardly. You are not here to be fixed. You are here to remember you were never broken. The ego wants answers. The soul wants peace. The ego clings. The soul flows. The ego reacts. The soul responds. The ego shouts. The soul whispers. Listen to the whisper. It is not loud, but it is true. It is not urgent, but it is eternal. That whisper is the doorway back to yourself. How many times have you been told that awakening is about becoming someone new? But true awakening is not about becoming. It is about unbecoming, peeling back the illusions, releasing the roles, dropping the labels. The labels were never you. You are not your job title. You are not your relationship status. You are not your failures. You are not your traumas. You are the one who watched them come and go. You are the one who endured and transcended. You are awareness itself. You've been taught to strive towards some higher version of yourself. But let me tell you something radical. You are already the higher version. You are simply hidden behind thought patterns and false beliefs. Like the sun behind the clouds, you have not stopped shining. You have only forgotten your own radiance. The spiritual path is not a staircase to climb. It is a return to the ground you never left. The light within you has been waiting patiently while you searched outside of yourself. But there comes a moment, maybe this is that moment, where you stop and remember the light was never gone. You simply closed your eyes. You don't need more time, you need more truth. You don't need more accomplishments, you need more presence. You don't need to gather more, you need to release. Release the guilt. It's not yours to carry. Release the resentment. It's only poisoning your peace. Release the identity built on proving yourself. You are not here to be better than anyone. You are here to be your truest self. The path to peace is not through adding, it is through subtracting. Subtracting the lies, the stories, the judgments. Underneath all that remains is stillness, presence, grace. And in that space, you meet yourself again. Not the self the world molded, but the self God breathed into being. The return to the light is not a journey of miles. It is a shift in perception. It is the moment you stop looking for the divine in temples and doctrines and begin seeing it in your breath, your body, your being. You are not separate from God. You are the expression of God. You are not on a quest to reach the divine. You are the divine remembering itself. Even now, as you hear these words, something inside you is stirring, something ancient, something sacred. It does not need convincing. It only needs space. It only needs your permission to come forth. So pause, breathe, let your thoughts pass like leaves on a stream. Let your judgments fall away like old garments. Let your soul speak. You are here, and you are enough. You are not here to accumulate power, to manipulate outcomes, or to chase meaning like it's hiding from you. You are here to awaken. You are here to shed illusions. You are here to walk yourself home, not to a location, but to a state of being, to the deep and sacred awareness that says, I remember who I am. And who you are is not what you've been through, not what they called you, not even what you called yourself in moments of pain or confusion. You are the unchanging presence behind the ever-changing story. You are not the weather of emotion. You are the sky that holds it all. There's nothing to defend here. The ego defends. The soul allows. You do not need to explain your existence. You are not a question that needs answering. You are an answer that needs remembering. You are not the mistake in need of correction. You are the miracle in need of awakening. You may have been told that God is distant, watching you from some celestial height, judging your every move. But the truth is this: God is not above you. God is within you. Not in the voice of fear, but in the quiet vibration of love. Not in punishment, but in presence. The divine is not waiting for your perfection. It is living in your imperfection. It is not seeking your sacrifice. It is offering you grace. It is not hiding. It is waiting patiently for you to turn inward and see. This is the power of your stillness. When you stop chasing, stop running, stop proving, you begin hearing. And what you hear is what you've always known, that you are already whole, already sacred, already held. The pain that once defined you, it was the fire that burned away what wasn't real. The heartbreak that shattered you, it was the doorway to a deeper compassion. The disappointment that brought you to your knees, it was the sacred teacher reminding you that you were never meant to stand on borrowed strength. You were meant to kneel in humility and rise in truth. When you stop identifying with the ego story, its need to control, to compare, to dominate, you begin to notice something softer, something quieter, a pulse of peace, a breath of divinity. That's the light returning, not because it ever left, but because you finally turned around to face it. The light is not earned, it is remembered. It's not found in the next accomplishment or the next relationship or the next improvement of who you think you are. It's in the pause between thoughts. It's in the silence between breaths. It's in the smile of a stranger, the warmth of a sunrise, the stillness of an ordinary moment when you suddenly feel home. You were not created to suffer endlessly. You were not placed here to carry generational burdens like chains around your ankles. You were created to remember your power, to remember your presence, to remember that you are a vessel of God's awareness walking in human form, not separate, not forgotten, not abandoned, but chosen, remembered, and sacred. So what now? Now you forgive. Not because the other deserves it, but because your soul does. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is strength that no longer needs a sword. It is you saying, I will not drink the poison of resentment one more day. I choose peace. I choose freedom. I choose to release what was never mine to carry. You forgive yourself too, for not knowing, for holding on, for playing small, for mistaking survival for life. There is no shame in the path that brought you here. Every wound was a crack through which the light could enter. Every mistake was a detour on the map of your soul's remembering. You are not behind, you are right on time. Return to the breath. Feel it fill your chest. That is life saying yes to you over and over again, not because you earned it, but because you are it. You are life, you are breath, you are love in motion. And every time you forget, return again. Every time the fear comes, return again. Every time the mind pulls you into anxiety, into judgment, into old stories, return. Return to now. Return to the stillness. Return to the light within. There is no final destination, no someday where you will be finally fully okay. There is only this moment. And the more you enter it, not with force, but with surrender, the more you realize this moment is enough. This breath is enough. This you right now is enough. Can you feel it? The release, the loosening, the sacred exhale that says, I don't have to fight anymore. That is the soul awakening. That is you coming home. You see, the great illusion is that you had to do something to become spiritual, but you were never not spiritual. Spirituality is not something you do, it is something you are. You are spirit. temporarily human but eternally divine, temporarily confused but eternally whole, temporarily afraid but eternally held. So walk with grace now, not as someone searching for love, but as someone radiating it, not as someone climbing toward peace, but as someone breathing it, not as someone begging for light, but as someone remembering, I am the light. Every flower blooms in its own time. Every soul awakens in its own season. There is no rush, there is only unfolding. The lotus does not bloom by force. It blooms by allowing, and so must you. You do not need to be louder, brighter, or faster. You only need to be truer. And the truest thing about you is not what the world has labeled you. It is not what you do. It is not how others see you. The truest thing about you is love. Now, breathe into that truth. Hold it like a sacred ember and let it burn away every lie. Let it burn away every story of unworthiness. Let it burn until all that remains is the light. Your light, the eternal light, the light within. And when you walk through this world in silence, or in song, in joy, or in pain, let that light lead the way. Let it pour through your words. Let it soften your eyes. Let it fill every space you enter. You don't have to say a word. Your presence will be the sermon. Your stillness will be the teaching. Your love will be the proof. This is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning of your return. Your return to truth. Your return to wholeness. Your return to the light within. Do not mistake comfort for peace. One is an illusion of the senses, the other a recognition of the soul. Many cling to what is familiar because it feels safe, not realizing that safety built on fear is not safety. It is a prison disguised as a refuge. True peace does not arise from the absence of discomfort. It blossoms in the presence of truth. And truth, when embraced, will shake the foundations of everything false, not to punish you, but to liberate you from the life you were never meant to settle for. You cannot ascend while gripping the ground. The soul cannot soar when the mind demands control. Let your grasp soften. Let the tension that has kept you locked in patterns of anxiety dissolve into the gentle realization that nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal was ever worth protecting. When you release your need to manage the uncontrollable, you create space for miracles. You become available to grace. Do not search for your light in someone else's reflection. You were not born to imitate the fire of another. You are not here to echo, but to express. There is a rhythm, a radiance, a tone that is uniquely yours. When you stop looking outward and begin listening inward, you will hear it. That subtle hum, that quiet vibration, the ancient echo that says, this is me and I am enough. Life does not require your perfection, it invites your presence. And the more you resist your imperfections, the more you reject the very doorway through which your healing walks. You cannot awaken while shaming the parts of you that sleep. Speak to your shadows not as enemies, but as messengers. They do not come to torment, they come to teach. They are not flaws in your design, but fabric in your becoming. Bow to them, listen, learn, and release. Let silence become your sanctuary. Not the silence of avoidance, but the fertile silence where the sacred speaks. It does not shout. It will never compete with your distractions. It waits until you are ready to hear what you've been too busy to feel. In this silence, you do not need to do. You only need to be. And in the being, everything begins to realign with a wisdom that cannot be understood, only trusted. There is a profound intelligence moving through all things. It orchestrates galaxies without your permission. It beats your heart without your command. Why do you doubt that it will not also guide your path? You were not dropped here without purpose. You are a note in a divine melody, a word in a sacred poem, a breath in the eternal lungs of God. When you surrender to this intelligence, You move not with effort, but with grace. You do not need to defend your path to anyone. What is real does not need convincing. What is sacred cannot be explained. Let those who misunderstand walk their own journey, bless them, release them, and return to your own becoming. Your job is not to be understood by the world. Your job is to become a vessel through which truth can live, even if the world is not ready to hear it. No longer seek to be chosen. You were chosen the moment you arrived. No longer seek to be worthy. Worthiness is not a currency, it is your essence. It is not granted by others, it is remembered within. You are not applying for approval from life. You are life. You are the pulse of creation, the whisper of consciousness shaped into form. You do not need to ask for permission to be who you already are. Allow softness to lead. The world may tell you that strength is hardness, armor, impenetrability. But the deepest strength is found in vulnerability, in the courage to remain open when it would be easier to close. Do not become bitter in response to betrayal. Do not become cold in response to pain. Become clearer, become quieter, become so deeply rooted in the truth of your being that nothing can pull you from it. The soul is not fragile, it is unshakable. You who have been through storm and silence, through ache and awakening, you have not been broken. You have been initiated. You have been shaped not into something new, but into someone real. The pain did not disfigure you. It revealed the depth of your being. And now you stand not in the ruins, but in the rebirth. Let others rise in their own time. You are not responsible for anyone else's awakening. Be the light, not the force. Be the invitation, not the instruction. Your example, your peace, your presence, that is your offering. Let the world be drawn to your flame, not burned by your need to change it. Remember, the lighthouse does not chase the ships, it simply shines. As you walk, walk slowly. The soul is never in a hurry. It knows that everything meant for you will find you in the right season. You do not need to chase, you only need to align. With each breath, each surrender, each courageous act of letting go, you come into greater harmony with the truth that you are already home. The path was never outside of you. It was never hidden in a mountaintop or buried in some distant future. It has always been where you least thought to look, beneath your own stillness. The treasure is not ahead of you, it is within you, and you carry it everywhere you go. Return to it, not with force, but with reverence. You are not the caterpillar crawling toward transformation. You are the butterfly remembering its wings. And it does not need to struggle to fly, it only needs to stop clinging to the branch of who it used to be. So exhale. Let the story of struggle fall away. Let the identity of the seeker soften. You have sought long enough. You have wrestled with shadows long enough. You have carried burdens that were never yours to begin with. This is your moment of release. This is your return. Not to a version of you that is polished and proven, but to the version of you that is honest and holy. Return now, not to the self you were told to be, but to the self you were born as. Return to the quiet knowing. Return to the breath that connects you to the infinite. Return to the presence that never leaves. Return to the light within. You are no longer required to chase the illusion of becoming. The path now is not upward, but inward, not a ladder to climb, but a veil to lift. Beneath the surface of striving is a deeper invitation to dissolve the performance, to meet life without the costume, to enter the sacred not as a seeker, but as one who finally dares to see. See what? That you have always belonged, that you have never fallen out of alignment, only out of awareness. Every attempt to be more has quietly whispered that you are not yet, but that whisper was never yours. It was inherited, conditioned, rehearsed. Now, there is a different voice, not loud, but rooted in peace, that doesn't ask you to evolve into someone greater, but to dissolve into something truer. It doesn't say, change yourself. but reveal what has been hidden under layers of pretending. This presence, this clarity, it does not come from mastering life's complexity. It comes from unlearning the beliefs that made you forget how simple it is to be. It doesn't demand force or will. It invites openness. Openness is not passivity. It is power in its most honest form, the kind that doesn't need to dominate to feel safe. It simply stands anchored in what is. If you listen closely, you will feel that life has never truly asked you to be extraordinary. It has asked you to be real, to be fully available to what is true now, not what was, not what could be, but what quietly lives under this breath, in this heartbeat, in this exact moment of surrender. Realness doesn't need embellishment. It needs space. So much of your pain has come not from what happened, but from the effort to hold together who you thought you had to be in the aftermath. You are not the guardian of an identity. You are the space in which all identities dissolve. When you stop defending your idea of self, you begin to feel something greater than self, something vast, awake, and perfectly still. Your growth is not a straight line. It is a spiral, drawing you again and again back to the same lessons, but each time from a new elevation. Don't resent the revisiting. It is not regression. It is refinement. You are being sculpted, not punished, carved into presence, into honesty, into your original shape. Let yourself be emptied, not because there is something wrong with what you carry, but because space is sacred, and it is only in emptiness that the fullness of being can settle in. The mind seeks to fill, the soul seeks to clear. Let what is heavy leave you, not by effort, but by non-resistance. Let your truth be light enough to rise. The call is subtle, but constant, to live without armor, to step through the world not with guardedness, but with gentleness, rooted in trust. Not blind trust in outcomes, but deep trust in your own aliveness. The kind that doesn't shrink in chaos. The kind that recognizes change not as a threat, but as a sacred movement of life through form. You don't need to protect yourself from truth. You only need to stop shielding yourself from its light. Light does not harm. It reveals. It clarifies. It dissolves confusion not by explanation, but by illumination. Let it shine not on who you pretend to be, but on who you have always been beneath the pretending. If you've forgotten what that feels like, don't worry. The forgetting was part of the path. There is no shame in being human. There is only learning, remembering, and the soft courage to begin again. Again, not from the beginning, but from where you are, without illusion, without defense. Can you meet yourself there? Can you allow the silence between thoughts to become your teacher? Can you trust that what you feel when all else fades is enough? You don't need a dramatic transformation. You don't need the stars to align. All you need is to see clearly, to feel wholly, to be sincerely here. That's where the miracle lives. Not in changing the world, but in being so present that even the ordinary becomes holy. This is not the conclusion of your journey. This is the flowering of a new awareness. Not towards something better, but into something deeper. A presence that doesn't need explanation. A being that doesn't need validation. A soul that has stopped wandering and started listening. Let life move through you now without resistance. Let your breath arrive without interference. Let your awareness expand without fear. Let your heart be your compass, not your guard. And most of all, let each moment arrive without condition. Because this breath, this awareness, this quiet is enough. And in its quiet enoughness, you will know what all the seeking was for. There comes a moment, not always loud, not always visible, when something stirs inside you. A whisper beneath the noise of the world, a gentle nudge against the walls you've built. It's not a cry for help, it's a call to remembrance. Not a plea to become something new, but an invitation to return to what you've always been.
The real you was never gone, just buried. Buried beneath expectations you inherited. Buried beneath stories you were told. Buried beneath disappointments you never deserved. Like the sun behind the clouds, your true self never ceased to shine, was only momentarily obscured. The soul cannot vanish. It can only be veiled. We have been conditioned to forget. We were taught to listen to voices louder than our own. We were encouraged to trade our truth for approval, our joy for performance, our presence for productivity. And so we buried the softness. We hid the stillness. We abandoned the innocence. Not because we were broken, but because we thought that's what survival demanded. But let me tell you something simple and eternal. You were never meant to live a life of disguise. You were never meant to become a copy of anyone else's dream. You were born in truth, formed in love, and destined for freedom. And though you've wandered far, nothing essential has been lost. The gold is still in you. It has only been waiting for you to remember where you placed the shovel. You are not the names you were called. You are not the roles you perform. You are not the fears you carry. These are layers, masks, echoes. But beneath them lives something eternal and untouched. Something the world did not give you and therefore cannot take away. There is a light in you that predates your pain. There is a wholeness in you that survived the fragmentation. There is a love in you that has nothing to prove. And when you begin to listen, to truly listen, you'll hear the voice of your soul reminding you, I am still here. I always was. We bury ourselves under layers of striving and shame because the ego teaches us that who we are is not enough. It shouts, be more, do more, win more. And so we become performers in our own lives, applauded for the act, yet exhausted from the pretending. The tragedy is not that we forget, we all forget. The tragedy is believing the forgetting is final, but it's not. You are allowed to remember. You are allowed to put down the performance. You are allowed to stop running and sit in your own stillness. You are allowed to say, I miss who I was before the world told me who to be. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of spiritual courage. Healing does not begin when we change. Healing begins when we become honest about where we are. When we say, I'm tired of wearing masks that don't fit. I'm tired of living someone else's life while my own soul waits patiently behind the curtain. You do not need to become anything. You need only to uncover. You do not need to seek what you already are. You need only to see what you have buried. The acorn does not strive to become an oak. It simply surrenders to the truth of what it is. And in that surrender, everything it is destined to be unfolds naturally, organically, miraculously. The same is true for you. Your soul is not interested in your resume. It does not keep score of your failures. It does not measure your worth and productivity. It knows nothing of scarcity or shame. Your soul is interested in one thing, truth. And truth cannot be manufactured, it can only be revealed. So breathe, and in this breath, allow the dust to settle. Feel beneath the performance. Feel beneath the guilt. Feel beneath the should and the should have. Do you feel it? That flicker of aliveness? That is you, the real you, still warm, still awake, still whole. Not the version of you molded by society. Not the version of you that fears rejection. Not the version of you trying to earn worth, but the version that just is. The child who once played without apology. The spirit who once loved without fear. The soul who once trusted without evidence. The real you is not broken. The real you is not confused. The real you is not behind. The real you is free. And all the pain you've walked through, all the betrayal, all the heartbreak, all the disappointment, they did not erase you. They revealed where you stopped believing in your own light. But that light, it never stopped believing in you. There is something holy about reclaiming what you buried. There is something sacred about meeting yourself again after years of pretending. It is the most intimate reunion. The ego will resist. It will panic at the thought of losing control. It will whisper lies to keep you in hiding. But you are not here to obey fear. You are here to dissolve it with awareness. You were not born to live in defense. You were born to live in alignment. You were not born to compete. You were born to connect. You were not born to hustle for worth. You were born worthy. Every time you return to yourself, the universe sings. Every time you say yes to stillness, the divine listens. Every time you dare to feel instead of suppress, you melt another layer of illusion. You don't need more fixing, you need more remembering. You don't need to be taught your worth. You need to unlearn everything that made you doubt it. You don't need a map. You are the destination. And you've been waiting for your own arrival? Keep going inward. Keep digging. Every buried truth is waiting for your permission to rise. And when it does, you'll weep not because you found something new, but because you finally return to what has always been yours. And the beautiful paradox is this: the moment you stop chasing who you think you're supposed to be, the real you comes forth with grace, not effort. There is no struggle in being what is already true. There is only a quiet softening like a flower unfolding to the sun, not because it was forced, but because it was ready. You have been ready longer than you realize. You have carried the keys while believing you were locked out. You have sung the melody of your soul in whispers, afraid someone might hear your joy and judge it. But now is the season of returning. Now is the time for shedding the heavy cloaks of pretending. Now is the sacred invitation to live unburdened by the expectations of others and unashamed of the depth of your light. There is no medal for dimming your spirit to keep others comfortable. There is no reward for betraying your truth in the name of being accepted by people who don't even know who they are. You are not here to be understood by the asleep. You are here to awaken. And awaken you must, not in rebellion, but in remembrance, not in anger, but in peace. Because the real you is not here to fight for identity. It already knows its origin is divine. The real you is not in scarcity, nor confusion, nor desperation. The real you breathes in harmony with all that is. Imagine for a moment that you were never taught to abandon yourself. Imagine that no one ever told you to earn love, to fear failure, to doubt your worth. Who would you be today? You'd be bold, soft, limitless. You'd be unapologetically radiant. You'd be free. But even though the world did teach you otherwise, and even though you did forget, it's not too late. Because what is real cannot be destroyed. Truth may be delayed, but it is never denied. And the soul waits patiently, lovingly, as you remove each mask, each wound, each lie. It waits without judgment. It waits without rush, because your soul remembers who you are, even when you do not. It's why the ache has never left. Not the ache of loss, but the ache of remembering. That quiet longing, you feel it's not a weakness. It's the voice of truth calling you home. And as you begin to answer that call, not with panic, but with presence, you start to feel life differently. You notice the sacred in the simple. You hear silence not as emptiness, but as clarity. You look in the mirror and see someone you're finally willing to meet, not fix. And that's when it begins. The rebirth. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep. A returning, layer by layer, to the essence beneath it all. You realize that your worth was never up for negotiation. You realize that love was never something you had to win. You realize that your sensitivity was never a flaw, it was your compass. And the more you honor what you used to hide, the more you shine without effort. This is not arrogance. This is reverence. This is not ego. This is alignment. You stop asking, how do I become enough? And start asking, what have I believed that made me forget I already am? And like a snake shedding its skin, you release the roles, the people-pleasing, the striving, the proving. You lay them down gently, with gratitude for how they served you when you didn't yet know your truth. Then you step forward, not into a new identity, but into the space you once feared was too sacred for you to inhabit. This is where you begin to live, truly live, not in reaction to the world, but in response to your spirit. Not from wounded identity, but from remembered wholeness. And you see now that healing was never about becoming something different. Healing was about revealing who was always beneath the pain. The innocent one, the quiet one, the true one. And now you are ready to let that one speak, to let that one breathe, to let that one lead. There will be moments when the old story tries to pull you back. It will tell you you're not ready, that you're not healed enough, that you're still too broken. But listen closely. That voice is not your soul. It's the echo of your conditioning. And echoes may sound real, but they have no substance. They cannot touch you unless you stop and give them meaning. You don't need to argue with the noise. You just need to walk forward anyway, eyes open, heart steady, spirit rooted. And when you do, when you walk with the quiet knowing of your wholeness, life begins to rearrange itself around your truth. You attract what honors you. You align with what nurtures you. You magnetize what speaks your soul's language. This is not magic. This is resonance. This is the law of harmony. The universe responds not to what you pretend to be, but to who you actually are. And when who you are is no longer hidden beneath shame, no longer buried beneath fear, you become a lighthouse. Not because you shout, not because you strive, but because you exist fully, freely, and fiercely as yourself. And that is the greatest service you can offer the world, your authenticity. Not a performance, not a projection, but your living truth. Because when you stop hiding, you give others permission to stop hiding too. When you forgive yourself for forgetting, you give others the courage to remember. And when you live with your heart uncovered, you become the healing you once waited for. So let this be your sacred reclamation. Let this be the breath where you say, I am no longer a stranger to myself. Let this be the moment where you stop digging through the rubble of who you used to be and instead rise clean and whole from the silence of your becoming. Because the real you is not waiting at the end of your achievements. The real you is not waiting in the mirror of someone else's approval. The real you is not waiting on the other side of perfection. The real you is now, right here, beneath every false layer, beneath every buried truth, beneath every mask, alive, whole, sacred, and ready. Not ready to chase, not ready to perform, but ready to live as who you were before the forgetting. Because the real you was never gone, just buried. And now, you remember. There is a divine rhythm to awakening. It does not come in a rush, but in ripples. One realization leads to another. One truth uncovers the next. And slowly, your life becomes less about running from pain and more about moving toward presence. You no longer seek escape, you seek alignment. You no longer try to numb the ache, you listen to it. Because now you understand the ache is sacred. It is not a flaw in your design. It is a compass pointing you back to where you buried your joy. And isn't that beautiful? That even in your suffering, there was guidance. That even in your confusion, there was wisdom. You thought you were lost, but you were actually being led, not away from yourself, but deeper into yourself. The breakdowns, the betrayals, the silent nights, they were not detours. They were doorways. Doorways into depth. Doorways into truth. Doorways into the only thing that ever really mattered, your soul's remembrance. And when the remembrance comes, it does not come with fireworks. It comes with peace. The kind of peace that doesn't need conditions. The kind of peace that says, I no longer need to be someone else to feel worthy. It is a peace born not of control, but of surrender. Not of striving, but of being. And in that peace, you begin to see everything differently. The people who hurt you, they were asleep too. The moments you regret, they were your teachers. The mistakes you made, they were chapters, not definitions. You begin to release the grip. You stop gripping the old narrative. You stop defending your limitations. You stop arguing for the smallness that never fits you. You see, now that your pain didn't make you less, it made you aware. Aware of what you never want to abandon again. Aware of what it means to live truthfully, not conveniently. And so you let go not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You let go of the people who only knew how to love the mask. You let go of the timelines that were never yours. You let go of the fight to be seen because you finally see yourself. And oh, how holy that is. To see yourself not through the eyes of trauma, not through the lens of performance, but through the gaze of love. You begin to walk differently. Not with arrogance, but with grace. Not with fear, but with reverence. Because you know what it took to get here. You know the darkness you walked through. You know the courage it took to unbury yourself. And so you don't need to convince anyone anymore. You don't need to explain your worth. You simply live it. You embody it quietly, powerfully, authentically. The real you is not loud, but it is radiant. The real you is not perfect, but it is whole. The real you is not finished, but it is free. Free to love without apology. Free to express without fear. Free to create, not to be noticed, but because it brings you joy. And in this freedom, you discover something else. There is no separation between your healing and the healing of the world. Because every time you show up as your true self, you give someone else permission to breathe deeper. Every time you choose peace over performance, you remind others that peace is possible. Every time you stop hiding, you shift the collective story from shame to sovereignty. This is how change happens, not through force, but through authenticity. Not through shouting, but through shining. And the world needs your shine. Not the polished version, not the filtered version, but the raw, real, beautifully human light that only you carry. You are not here to be like everyone else. You are here to be a mirror. A mirror that reflects what is true. A mirror that reminds others of their own light. A mirror that says, look, you never lost yourself. You only stopped looking within. So keep looking within. Keep returning. When the world gets noisy, return. When the doubts grow loud, return. When the pain resurfaces, return. Return to the breath. Return to the now. Return to the place inside you that was never touched by fear, never defined by failure, never dimmed by time. That place is home. That place is where the real you lives. And from that place, everything becomes clear. You don't need to chase what's meant for you. It will find you in your authenticity. You don't need to beg for love you are love. You don't need to fear the unknown. The unknown is where your soul dances. And as you live from that space, life begins to unfold in divine rhythm. Not always easy, not always predictable, but always meaningful, always guided, always holy. Because you are no longer walking as someone pretending to be alive. You are walking as someone who has returned, not to a version, but to the original, the essence, the truth, the real you, still here, still radiant, still enough. And now that you've returned to the center of your being, you start to witness the world from a place of calm power, no longer tossed by every opinion, no longer shrinking in rooms that once intimidated you. You realize that nothing outside of you can define the truth within you. That freedom is not found in changing your surroundings, but in transforming the way you see. And now you see with the eyes of the soul. You see through illusion. You see past the masks of others and into the essence they've forgotten too. You no longer crave approval because you recognize the futility of trying to be understood in a language that doesn't speak to your truth. You don't resist that either. You bless it and you let it be. This is the maturity of awakening, not just reclaiming your own soul, but learning how to let others walk their own path without judgment. You begin to understand that everyone is buried in some way. Everyone is healing from something. And so instead of resenting the world, you begin to soften toward it. You move from resentment to compassion, from defense to openness, from why don't they see me to I hope they find themselves too. And that shift, it's nothing short of sacred. You begin to live not as a reaction to the world, but as an offering to it. Your presence becomes medicine. Your authenticity becomes a lighthouse. And you don't need to scream it from rooftops. You simply are, because when you are rooted in the real you, your life itself becomes a transmission, a silent teaching, a quiet revolution of light. And with this, something even more powerful begins to happen. You no longer see your past as a curse. You see it as the soil. You see the pain not as the end of your innocence, but as the beginning of your depth. The things that once made you bitter now make you wise. The wounds that once closed your heart now expand it. You've stopped asking, why did this happen to me? And you've started asking, what did this awaken in me? And that question unlocks the door to your soul. You no longer seek healing from the outside in. You don't chase remedies. You return to the healer within. You trust the divine intelligence in your tears. You listen to your body. You believe your intuition. You treat your triggers not as enemies, but as sacred messengers whispering where more light is needed. And you become gentle, not weak gentle. There is a quiet strength and softness, a profound courage and tenderness. You no longer need the armor because truth doesn't fear exposure. You let others think what they want because their perception cannot alter your essence. You walk unshaken because your peace is no longer negotiable. This is where the real living begins. When you are no longer trying to protect a false self, when you are no longer addicted to performance, when you are no longer imprisoned by the past or obsessed with the future, you begin to live from presence. And presence is not a practice, it is a return. The return to now, the return to simplicity, the return to the breath, the body, the beauty of this exact moment. Because the soul only lives now, and now is enough. Always has been, always will be. When you drop into this moment, the illusion of separation dissolves. You see God in the ordinary. You feel grace in your stillness. You remember that there was never a moment when you were truly alone. You may have forgotten, yes, but forgotten doesn't mean forsaken. You look back at the darkest nights and you no longer curse them. You bow to them because those were the nights you cracked open. Those were the nights the illusions began to fall away. Those were the nights you began to hear the whisper behind the noise saying, come home. And you did. Not all at once. Not perfectly, but faithfully. And now, you are here not as a shadow, but as a soul. Not as a role, but as a presence. Not as a reaction, but as a being. You live slower now because you're no longer in a race. You breathe deeper because you're no longer holding your worth hostage. You smile more because your joy is no longer conditional. You give without grasping. You love without losing yourself. You create without comparing. You've dropped the heaviness, the story, the struggle, not because life got easier, but because you remembered who you are. And the beautiful irony is this: what the world told you to hide is exactly what makes you whole. Your sensitivity is not a flaw, it is your gateway to empathy. Your softness is not a weakness, it is your truest strength. Your presence is not insignificant, it is the very space where healing begins. You no longer try to be impressive. You now aim to be honest. You no longer chase meaning, you create it by being fully here. And in that presence, you are guided, not by fear, not by ego, but by something quieter, deeper, more ancient, the wisdom of the soul, the whisper of your divine source, the intelligence of love itself. And this is the moment where everything turns. This is the moment you stop looking outward for proof and start looking inward for peace. This is the moment where you become the parent to the child inside who was waiting all along to be loved without condition. This is the moment where forgiveness isn't something you do, it's something you become. A state of being that flows through you effortlessly because you are no longer interested in carrying what was never yours. You choose freedom. Not later, not when it's convenient, but now. And now again. And now again. Because freedom isn't a destination, it's a decision. A decision to be here as you are and know that it is more than enough. And so we arrive at the sacred edge of remembrance, where everything you once sought outside of you is revealed to have lived within you all along. You were not born to chase love, you are love. You were not created to seek light, you radiate it. You were not sent here to gather pieces of yourself. You were sent here whole, radiant, holy, and merely invited to remember. The real you was never gone, just buried. Under layers of fear that were never yours, under beliefs passed down by generations too wounded to know better, under silence you thought would keep you safe. But safety is not found in hiding. It is found in truth. And truth never asks you to be small. You are not a damaged soul in need of fixing. You are an infinite spirit in need of freeing. You do not need permission to return to yourself. You do not need validation to exist. You do not need agreement to be whole. The only requirement is your yes. A wholehearted yes to presence. A gentle yes to truth. A courageous yes to life as it unfiltered, unedited, unrehearsed. This is where the liberation begins. When you stop trying to be lovable and realize you are love, when you stop trying to prove your existence and begin inhabiting it fully, when you stop searching for God in the sky and remember God has always lived inside your breath, your body, your being, and when this knowing settles in your bones, the world no longer has the power to shape you. You become rooted in what cannot be shaken. Not arrogant anchored, not defensive devoted, devoted to the truth of your soul, devoted to the peace that no storm can take, devoted to the sacred path of being fully, fiercely, freely you. You begin to walk in the world differently. You speak with softness and certainty. You listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. You love without needing anything in return because your source of love is infinite. And you stop grasping for control because you understand that surrender is the truest form of power. This is where the ego dissolves not in defeat, but in awe, because the ego cannot survive in the presence of truth. And truth is what you are. You no longer hold resentment because you no longer hold yourself hostage. You no longer repeat the story because you no longer identify with the suffering. You've learned that the wound is not your identity. It is the place the light enters. It is not a mark of failure. It is the sign of initiation. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be present, to weep when the heart breaks, to laugh when joy floods in, to sit in silence when words are not enough, to dance even when no one watches, to love even if it means loss, to live even if it means letting go. Because real living is not about certainty, it's about surrender. And surrender is not weakness, it is the ultimate alignment. It is saying, I trust what I cannot see because I know who I am. It is releasing the story that says, I must control everything, and returning to the sacred knowing I am already held. And you are held by a universe that speaks in synchronicities, held by a divine presence that has never left your side, held by the breath that continues moment after moment, asking nothing but your return. So come back again and again. Come back to the sacred now. Come back to your quiet knowing. Come back to your soul. Because no matter how far you've wandered, no matter how long you've been buried, the truth is still waiting with open arms. It is not bitter. It is not angry. It is not impatient. It is still here, still whole, still you. And now you are ready not to become something new, but to unbecome everything that was never real, to shed, to release, to return. And in that return, you risen not above others, but above illusion. Not in ego, but in essence. Not in perfection, but in peace. The world may not understand this version of you. Let it not matter. Because understanding is not your mission, embodiment is. When you live as your truth, you are the mirror the world forgot it needed. When you walk as your soul, you are the prayer the world didn't know it had spoken. And when you return to yourself, you return to all. You begin to live not as a separate being, but as an extension of life itself. The trees become your teachers. The stars become your reminders. The silence becomes your sanctuary. And love pure, boundless love becomes your way of being. Not something you give, not something you do, but something you are. You are the love you've searched for. You are the light you've longed to see. You are the peace you once thought was lost. And now you remember fully, completely. Finally, the real you was never gone, just buried. But you, my dear, have risen, and the world will never be the same.